Thank you so much. It's a great audience, and I was very happy to see concrete poetry, because this is something my father did in the 70s, and I suddenly feel connected to the work just presented. So I would love to see how we can bridge this, the art research that has been done in the 70s and before with the world we live in at the moment. Sometimes I feel we don't have enough history and understand how this all relates. I want to talk about hacking intelligence, because most of us are still, and I think in this audience, most people will know more about what's in the black box of technology than a normal audience, and already understanding that algorithms have bias and all these kind of concepts and notions about that technology is not neutral. And I like this, but still I think there are a lot of things that we don't really understand when we are interacting with the technologies. So for example, Alexa, it's a black box, being mentioned and being used by artists in all kind of different ways. I love this work. This is the anatomy of AI. And it tells us that it has, I'm so happy that it's such a great screen, but normally there's no way that you could read it, but I think if you, I don't know. But I will explain you first, and then I will zoom in some of them. And you can zoom in yourself when you go to this website. It's looking into the Alexa, the physical object, and says it has labor in it. So totally to my what is it left. It's all the people that have labor, that put labor into a product like Alexa. And also who is making what kind of money. So on the top it will be the boss of Amazon, and all down there it will be the people that's digging the conflict minerals out of the earth to make this thing. So it also defines how much real earth minerals are being used in products like Alexa and IoT products. And then in the middle it tells you what kind of technology is used to do speak recognition, to have this data infrastructure, worldwide data infrastructure, so that the moment that you ask Alexa, please turn on the light, you will activate all this. Which is a crazy idea, that you need all this to not walk to the door yourself. And then when the system is broke, you can't turn on the light anymore, which is also a very strange idea. And then on this side, it tells you when the product is broke, it will end up being what do we need to with the product when it's end of lifetime. And so this are some of the zoom ins, and it's quite extraordinary what's there behind the scene and in the black box behind the surface of this artificial intelligence. I think what's also very nice of the research being done by these two artists is that they also looked into the presumptions that we can quantify our life, that it's possible to datify everything that is our life. And I think this is a problem at the moment with artificial intelligence, that some people said that it's the human beings are apes with AI. So it's like a totally, so everything which is intelligence is being reduced to the idea that it is computing. And I think this is something, a reduction that it's being told to us, and we start to talk about it like that. And it's being taught also in informatics. And I think this is reducing our life to computing and to datification is quite a problem at the moment. So I love this quote of the two people that did this survey and research, from Craig Crawford and Vladan Joel. Each small moment of convenience, be it answering a question, turning on the light, or playing a song, play me some blues, requires a vast planetary network fueled by the extraction of non-renewable materials, labor, and data. So it's quite a strange idea that we try to create all this kind of beautiful experiences, but taking this for granted, that we're actually exploiting a lot of the earth materials, labor, and so on. Also knowing that it's being, also another research tells us that all the data, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things together will consume 20% of our energy consumption in 2040. And on the other hand, we try to not use this type of energy and try to reduce it for climate change. So it's quite a complex thing, a world that we're in. We want to play with the new stuff, but we also have a responsibility here. But we also have another black box. So thinking that we understand intelligence by making it artificial and reducing it to computing tells us that there's a reduction going on there where a lot of people are trying to figure out still what is emotion, what is consciousness, what is the mind, what is intelligence. And for this we had very interesting, a few years that we started to look into this with artists and scientists, and what is the brain and can we hack the brain? So this has been a program for 4 years, since 2014, where we brought neuroscientists and other scientists from biotechnology together with artists and designers. You can find it on the Hack the Brain Hub, and these are some of the first experiments. So, of course, a lot of the stuff is being very cheap at the moment, and it's a very interesting moment to work with neuroscientists because their tools and their software and everything is hackable, and you can work with it, and they love to work with you as well. So a lot of people, of course, wear glasses, put stuff on their head. It's quite a strange thing that everybody wants to be guinea pigs here. And we had events not only just in Amsterdam, but all over Europe. And here I think is very interesting. This is a project where Stuart Hammerhoff, who is a professor in consciousness, he's quite an amazing person in that field. And he came by and he did one of his experiments where you put, actually here you have him himself, you put an echo machine on your head. And then 15 minutes later, you feel like you had a martini. So this is the whole idea that we can influence our emotional state by influencing brainwaves. And to me, it's quite interesting that some of these scientists are as hackers, as sort of, they're so much in the same field as artists at the moment, that I really believe that this artistic research together with scientists is the field where a lot of new things will happen. This is a famous work of Lancel and Maat, where they try to figure out if they can upload a kiss, and also if the kiss between just strangers or people that know each other, what would happen, how to and the last is that you're sitting inside of something that's sort of like a beautiful scape, which is also a soundscape. And very interesting to see if this intimacy could be uploaded and could be downloaded then later on, or you could repeat your first kiss. So a lot of things, a lot of questions are arising from this work. This is a very interesting research into the idea of brain plasticity. And a PhD researcher, Nienke van Atteveldt, together with Marleen and some other people. That this is we have been taught that our brain is, if we understand that our brain is plastic, that it's changing, does it help us to understand that we can learn? So would it encourage us to learn? Instead of thinking, at the moment we think we have a brain and we pour knowledge in it. And then, well, when you're older, you still use the knowledge that's being put in by education in the early days. This is still, for a lot of people, the notion how we educate people. But if you think that your brain has this plasticity, then we always can learn, and our brain can become more and more able to learn. So it's not that when you're 8 and you can't learn, you have to, or when you're 12, you have to go to a certain place because you can't learn. This is something that can change over time. So these kind of projects are quite interesting to work together with scientists. And here you have some research. I think we have seen some of the work in installations also here at DocLab and other places. This is where artists try to influence the whole body, the senses. This is quite an extreme project where they make a suit which sort of goes for all your spine, and here you are laying in a specific, well, it doesn't feel very nice if you're laying there, but it will activate with sound your skin and put you into a specific experience. But I like this one even more better. This is the body with 70 pixels. And so you were totally covered by this installation. And it will give you cold and heat. And it can change in a few seconds. Which means, and they have this whole study in how this kind of heat and cold gives experience of love and anxiety. So they play around with you. It's quite it's a daredevil if you dare to put this on. But it does tell us that this sort of mask that we have now in the VR imaging, maybe you should. I like this kind of idea that we have to go for the whole body, and not just for the visual and sound senses, but also for the tactile senses. But then what I want to put on the table is maybe even a more complex thought. Is since a few years we discovered that there is a second brain. So it's not just the brain that has a central system that tells us what to do, that tells the body what to do. We have the gut, and this gut-brain axis is a whole field of new science research. And funny enough, if you look at this, you see that the brain is, for example, telling us that we need. It has a lot of things that it tells us or helps us to do, but the gut informs us about stress and anxiety, mood and behavior. So things that we normally put into what is in the mind, or maybe the mind is the combination of brain and gut. And what then the microbes are doing there? So the microbes in our gut, what kind of effect do they have on our emotions and on our state of being? And it's quite interesting research there. So the second brain has been a project of Marleen van der Vlucht, Marcel van Brakel, Danielle de Paulus, and that team tried to figure out an installation to tell us what's happening in the gut and in the brain, to give us some feedback. So they made an installation where they used also the EEG, not just from the brain, but also from the gut. And they're now working on a project to visualize it. So you have two bowls of blood and of spit. And these two tells you, the one tells you about the stomach and what's happening in the gut, and the other tells you what's happening in the brain. As one of the tools for people to understand what's happening inside of them, because there's not a lot of ways that we can understand what's happening in the gut at the moment, just by observing it ourselves. Only that you feel maybe butterflies because you're in love. That must be a real thing. That's interesting. That a lot of the things that of intuition maybe can be explained by this idea that is part of our mind setting. But then here, this is, I don't feel if you feel it in your stomach. The question is, what has this to do with microorganisms? Well, it has everything to do with this parasite. The Toxoplasma gondii is a parasite which lives in cats. And when you're pregnant, they tell you not to change the litter of the cat. That's because you should not have this parasite in you. There are a lot of people that have this parasite, and that's not really a problem. But not if you're pregnant, of course, then you have to try to escape it. But this parasite, when it's in rats, normally rats would leave when they smell smell a cat, the urine of a cat. They would flee away. When they have this Toxoplasma gondii in them, they will go to the cat. It's as if the parasite tells them, "Go and I want to go back to the cat. I want to be I want to be eaten by the cat, so I'm back in the cat." I know this is my storyline. I don't know what the real narrative is, but it's quite a strange thing. So the parasite tells the rat to go to a very dangerous place, which he normally would avoid. These people probably have the same parasite in them, because it has been proven that people that don't have fear, a lot of these people have this parasite in them. So maybe these are parasites that tell us to go and do these strange things. And if so, can we then maybe start to orchestrate our microbes and our microorganisms? So this is a whole new field of, I think we have 1.5 kilo of these microorganisms inside of us. So this is like a theater. We can make cinema in our stomachs and in our guts. So I think this. So for me, I'm always happy when there is new stuff to explore, and that like the creativity and the curiosity of artists can be freely flowing in this sort of fields. So for me, it would be a question to you coming soon: interactive storytelling for microorganisms. Thank you very much.